Up next on The Reveal.
He's robbed her of her entire childhood.
The tragic story of how a little girl's mother and a system supposed to protect her both failed.
He is a sick individual. Who hurts a baby that way? Who?
You have to listen to me right now as a father. If you release him today, something terrible is going to happen.
A father begs an Atlanta addiction center not to release his mentally ill son without medication.
If he ends up dead on the streets of Atlanta, this is on y'all's shoulders.
And I'm at the end of my rope.
3 days later, police find his nightmare is realized.
No answer, and then I knew something was wrong.
And keyless ignitions were designed out of convenience, but they can also be deadly.
It gets pretty scary.
The reveal begins now with investigators Faith Abube and Brendan Keefe.
Welcome to The Reveal, a show where news is made.
You're supposed to protect your kids, but when you fail in that responsibility, our laws, the state and police have a duty to step in. But in the case of a young Georgia girl, all her safety nets failed her and allowed her attacker time and space to continue to abuse her. School was one of those few consistent places Sophie could go and enjoy just being a kid. It was a place she could eat, play, and laugh with other fifth graders. And for a few hours a day, get a break from her unstable home life.
And she's very special. All of them are, but she was born premature, yellow jaundice.
That was then. On this particular day, the little girl is 9. We're calling her Sophie to protect her.
Your granddaughter has been through so much.
She has. And for her to keep living and be strong, she has an angel with her.
Police were also with her February 2016 as she got off the school bus into her grandmother's van.
All of a sudden, Grantville Police Department surrounds me.
Sophie had realized during sex education class that the man who was touching her at home was actually sexually abusing her. She told her elementary school administrators. They alerted police, and officers were now speaking to her grandmother.
What did they tell you exactly?
That she claimed that he had touched her.
He was 34-year-old Nicholas Dion Thrash. He was Sophie's mother's live-in boyfriend.
There was never a sign at all of any kind of child molestation.
After the interviews with her, I knew that he had done something.
Hogansville police investigator Jeff Shepard remembers taking over the case from Grantville Police because this house, where Thrash was abusing little Sophie, was just minutes from his police station.
What made this one so believable?
How does a 9-year-old make something up that graphic and traumatic? You can tell when somebody really is desperate for your help.
As Lieutenant Shepard and social workers with the Division of Family and Children's Services were busy making sure Sophie is physically okay, Thrash disappears.
And it was as if he fell off the face of the earth. Where is Nicholas Thrash? Mom says that she hasn't seen him, she can't get him on the phone. We know during the interviews that the children say that Mom's talking to him on the phone.
It was Lieutenant Shepard's first sign that Sophie's mother would become one of the biggest obstacles in his investigation.
Mom did not even come to the house for the search warrant.
But Lieutenant Shepard and his team went inside and found clothes, blankets, and underwear in Sophie's room, clear with DNA evidence. But Mom still wanted the case dropped.
But Mom had started then, you know, this case, you know, my daughter's, you know, I don't think she's telling the truth. I told her then that my case is going to be based on this DNA, and that's what I'm waiting on.
There was a defects order saying Sophie needed to be kept away from Thrash. Her mother still drove her hundreds of miles out of state to reunite with Thrash in Indiana before defects could stop her.
Do you think your daughter was in denial?
My daughter was brainwashed, very naive and searching and just trying to find a man to love her.
Sophie and her brother were once again sleeping under the same roof with her abuser, this time in this house in Indiana.
They were in a safety plan with me through Coweta County defects. They couldn't wait on evidence to come in, so they released them back to. What else can I do?
Grandma waited, hoping they would come back. During that time, Lieutenant Shepard was also waiting for the DNA test results.
because at the time we didn't have a warrant on paper yet, because there's believing somebody, but then there's getting the evidence to get the warrants.
The wait gave Thrash the space and time he needed to continue abusing Sophie outside Georgia.
Maybe I got some tunnel vision on the investigation. I didn't put a rush on the DNA.
The test results did eventually come back. Almost 2 years later, it confirmed Thrash had been raping the 9-year-old in this Troup County house. But it was too late. By then, he had raped her multiple times again in Indiana, and she was now pregnant with the 34-year-old's baby.
He is a sick individual. Very sick. Very, very sick. Who hurts a baby that way? Who?
He's robbed her of her entire childhood. It's one of those cases that makes you regret, because I did everything. I did, she did what she was supposed to do. She went and told somebody. She told an adult. Shows, even though the wheels are in motion and they're turning, sometimes they just don't seem to turn fast enough for the victim. And with everything we did, all that we could do, and everything in the power of the law and staying within the manner of the law, to me, we weren't fast enough.
What happened in this case, Faith?
Well, the law finally caught up with Sophie's mother and Thrash. They're both in prison right now. Thrash will spend 160 years behind bars.
Yeah, what are the other systems that failed Sophie? Are there any consequences for this?
According to Sophie's grandmother, 2 DFACS workers were fired for dropping the ball, but we haven't been able to confirm that because DFACS doesn't comment on cases.
What about Sophie and her baby? What happens now?
She had that baby just a few days shy of her 11th birthday. That baby is in foster care in Indiana. As for Sophie herself, we're told she's in a mental health facility for trying to take her own life. Safe to say, she has a lot of healing to do.
Up next on The Reveal.
They were calling me to tell me that my son had died.
A father wants justice for his son involving an addiction facility he says should never have released him.
That's not the way he deserved to die.
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
A man dies just days after he was released from a Georgia addiction facility. The man's father had begged the facility not to release his son without mental health medication. But tonight, new information revealing what was in the man's blood the night he died.
It didn't take long for Nick Caracello to become the offensive weapon on his high school football team. That's him, the kicker. His father, Mike, couldn't have been more proud.
When they got down there, near the 20-yard line installed, the coach would say, "Caracello, you're up."
There were dreams of playing in college.
Hey, I'm Nick Caracello, Hopewell Titans out of Charlotte, North Carolina, 3-year varsity kicker.
About a year later, though, something changed in Caracello. It started after police caught him drinking one night.
He was so angry. I said, there's something wrong with him. There's something medically wrong with him.
In 2008, doctors diagnosed Caracello with bipolar disorder. His parents spent years trying to get him help. When he was on his medication, things looked up. Off medication, he could spiral out of control.
It's July the 15th, 2017, and I'm at the end of my rope.
This past summer, he asked his mother to record this video of himself after a manic episode. The recording also served as a reminder to keep hope alive.
Be willing to do whatever it takes to get better, because you're worth it.
About 2 months after he recorded that video, the 29-year-old admitted himself into this Doraville, Georgia facility called the Mar Addiction Recovery Center. After a few days, a counselor called Caracello's parents to tell them he was doing well, participating in therapy, and taking his medication. About 3 weeks later, on September 19th, they got another call.
I remember my wife walking out of her office, coming down the hallway and saying, "Mar's on the phone, they're dismissing Nick." And we were both just dumbfounded.
Caracello then asked about his son's bipolar medicine called lithium.
There was a hesitation on the other end of the phone call, And they said, Nick's not on his lithium anymore. I then stood up and told the counselor we were talking to, you have to listen to me right now as a father. If you release him today, something terrible is going to happen. If he ends up dead on the streets of Atlanta, this is on y'all's shoulders.
Second 911, what is the address of the emergency?
Hi, I'm on I-85 between Fairmont and North Druid Hill. Someone got hit by a car on the highway. He was laying in the middle of the street.
The red alert continues and will for a while they investigate an unfortunate pedestrian fatality wreck.
Police say drivers saw Caracello run on the Interstate 85, not wearing any clothes.
At approximately 8 a.m., my phone rang. And it was someone from Atlanta. I don't even know who it was sitting here right now. They were calling me to tell me that my son had died. That's not the way he deserved to die.
The Mar Addiction Center declined to be interviewed. Instead, it sent this letter to the 11 Alive investigators writing, Nicholas and his family have been in our thoughts and prayers since this tragedy and remain so today. It is our policy not to comment on the care or treatment of individuals we serve. This isn't the first time the facility has been criticized for patient care. In 2015, someone overdosed on heroin here, which initiated an investigation by the Georgia Department of Community Health. According to inspection records, the state found the facility was not in compliance for having sufficient types and numbers of staff on duty to provide for safe supervision of clients. The following year, the state didn't re-inspect the facility. That's because it didn't have to. In fact, the only time the state requires inspections is the time the addiction center operator applies for a license.
I don't think our laws are as sophisticated for a vulnerable population.
State Senator Renee Unterman is the chair of the Health and Human Services Committee. She plans to file legislation to request additional state funding to do more inspections. Unterman also believes facilities should be required to have a long-term plan in place before discharging patients.
And oftentimes when they go into a facility, they're put on medication, but then when they're discharged, they come off their medication, and that's what makes a revolving door.
Family mourning the loss of their star kicker, who desperately wanted to live.
Do whatever it takes. Bye.
And so, Andy, what did Caracello's blood test results show?
So the family requested 2 tests, one by a lab run by the state and another by a private lab. Both showed he had 0 drugs and alcohol in his system the night he stepped onto Interstate 85. His family believes that shows he was likely going through psychosis as a direct result of not having his medication.
This is such a tragedy, Andy. The facility, have they responded at all?
Because of pending litigation, they are not commenting.
Coming up on The Reveal, how the technology in your car can also become a silent killer.
He said, Dad's gone. I said, what happened?
Technology helps make our lives more convenient, but sometimes that same convenience can come at a great cost.
Jennifer Titus from our sister station in Tampa investigates how the technology in your car could prove to be fatal.
That's 911. What is the address of the emergency?
My automatic van that you press button was parked in the garage. My husband came home 2.5 hours later and it opened the garage and smelled the, poison gas.
An average of 430 people die a year in the U.S. from carbon monoxide poisoning. Doug Schaub's 91-year-old father, Fred, is unfortunately one person that is part of that sad statistic.
You must remember one thing. Excuse me.
But he says his father's death should have been prevented.
We love you very much, and we'll always be near.
Fred died in 2017.
Love Mom and Dad.
After his passing, his family found this letter they believe he wrote shortly after their mom died in 2003. It was August 3rd when Fred, who loved playing cards, didn't show up for his friend's poker game.
I said, let me try his home phone then. He had his home phone too. No answer, and then I knew something was wrong.
After having no luck reaching his dad, his brother called the Hernando County Sheriff's Office for a wellness check. According to an incident report from the Sheriff's Office, when they arrived on scene, Fred's SUV was running in the garage. The carbon monoxide level was at 300%. Fred's body was found in the master bedroom.
9 o'clock, my sister always calls him. He takes his sleeping pill and he'll go to sleep. Well, he never woke up that morning.
Fred parked his car in the garage the day before.
Listen, my father's 91. He's been driving for 75 years. And he never had a problem with keys. Never. So he has the remote. It's a push button start. He goes to his bedroom, puts it in the end table, shuts his end table.
Doug says his father parked his car around 8 o'clock in the morning on August 2nd. When they found him the next afternoon, the car was still running.
He said, Dad's gone. I said, what happened? He said the car was running.
Key fobs have changed the way we start our cars. Instead of fumbling around for your keys, all you have to do is press the start button. But that convenience can come at a cost. Because just as easy as it is to start your car, it's just as easy to forget to turn it off with your key fob in your hand. With the car still running and the garage door shut, that's when it becomes a silent killer.
If the car is parked in an enclosed garage and you accidentally forget to turn off the engine, it can even result in carbon monoxide poisoning and death.
The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration recognizes the dangers of keyless ignitions, but doesn't track the number of incidents related to carbon monoxide poisoning and keyless ignition. Actually, no federal agency does, but nonprofit kidsincars.org does. They sent us this database showing 35 incidents across the United States since 2010.
Engine 30, District 29, Squad 29, gas leak.
This is the crew who responded to that 911 call. Thankfully, no one died from the high levels of carbon monoxide, but 4 patients were transferred to local hospitals.
So we knew there was an issue in one of the garages. Our detector spiked reading, it read up to 250 parts per million for CO. So when we see something up at 250, it gets pretty scary.
The department says keyless ignitions are a growing concern. To show us the dangers, firefighters monitored a garage while we parked a keyless ignition car, taking the key fob with us, leaving the car running, and closing the garage door. In just 1 hour, levels were already at 33 parts per million.
It's a remarkable number of folks who leave their car running at some point unintentionally because of the lack of design characteristics that would alert you to the car being running.
Sean Kane is the president of a research firm, Safety Research and Strategies. He says every car with a keyless ignition should come with an automatic shutoff.
It's going to continue being a problem until it's mandated.
We reached out to major car manufacturers and found that GM, Ford, Chrysler, Jeep, Fiat, and Kia offer automatic shutoff for certain models with keyless ignition. But there's no automatic shutoff for Hyundai, Honda, and Toyotas. Fred's car was a 2015 Toyota RAV4.
They don't have a sensor to shut that engine off.
So how much would it cost to implement automatic shutoff?
Really, we're looking at, dollars, if that.
We got a hold of documents from a 2015 recall for the Chevrolet Volt. The recall added automatic shutoff on all of their 2011 to 2013 Volts. In that paperwork, it lists the cost to a U.S. dealer to add the shutoff at a price of $4.78.
It's not expensive to fix for them. If you know about something, fix it. You're ruining families. You're ruining lives.
Investigator Jennifer Titus has an update on how national lawmakers are responding.
Now, this investigation has caught the attention from 2 U.S. representatives, both demanding answers from the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. U.S. Representative Charlie Crisp labeled our findings as troubling and sent a formal letter asking NHTSA to start studying the frequency of these incidents, something, of course, that they do not do now. For The Reveal, I'm Jennifer Titus.
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com. In 1965, Mary Shotwell Little vanished from Lenox Square Mall. Less than 2 years later, Diane Shields was found brutally murdered in the trunk of her own car. Investigative journalist Jessica Knoll is working to uncover whether these cases are connected in her 7-chapter podcast series, 5 Roses.
You've been watching The Reveal, a show where news is made.
And we'll see you next week for The Reveal.